A dyslexia diagnosis can feel overwhelming, but the first step is understanding exactly what it is. Dyslexia is a neurobiological learning difference. It is the physical wiring of the brain affecting how it processes the phonological component of language. Because of this, it is a lifelong condition, not a developmental phase a child will simply outgrow. This chart breaks down the actual scale of the condition. Looking at the general population, up to 20% of people show some symptoms of dyslexia. If you look specifically at students diagnosed with any learning disability, that secondary chart shows dyslexia accounts for roughly 80% of them. Your child is far from alone in this. These numbers come directly from decades of research by the National Institutes of Health and the International Dyslexia Association. Recognizing that dyslexia is a common, physical reality changes how we approach it. We can stop searching for a quick cure or a miracle fix, and instead focus our energy on a proven, lifelong instructional strategy that allows your child to thrive academically. Once you start looking for solutions, you will immediately run into a wall of marketing. There are hundreds of expensive programs and proprietary products, all promising rapid reading recovery. This quadrant chart maps out those interventions by cost and proven evidence. A 2021 meta-analysis looked at decades of data and found something surprising. The specific brand name of an intervention doesn't actually dictate success. All of these heavily marketed proprietary programs can be crossed out. What actually drives results are the core teaching principles underneath them. Those remaining points form the gold standard of intervention, known as structured literacy. To be effective, instruction must rest on 3 pillars. It must be explicit, meaning rules are directly taught, not guessed. It must be systematic, following a strict logical order, and it must be cumulative, meaning every single lesson builds tightly on the last with no gaps. The resources we are going to outline today come from the Stella Knowledge Base, a peer-reviewed guide compiled by the Gear Foundation to help families cut through the noise. You do not need to empty your savings for a specific brand name. You need an instructor or a program that strictly adheres to the structured literacy framework. This decision tree maps the proven pathways for instruction. We'll follow the first branch, clinical or school-based interventions, grounded in the Orton-Gillingham approach. Here, highly rigorous programs like Wilson or Spire require certified practitioners to deliver the lesson plans. When executed correctly by a trained professional, these clinical programs produce excellent outcomes. They offer highly structured, validated instruction with a long track record of helping students achieve grade-level reading. The trade-off is entirely logistical. This route requires high out-of-pocket costs for a private clinic or living in a public school district with the budget and certified staff available to provide it. Because of those financial and geographic barriers, this highly rigorous path is systematically out of reach for many families. If that matches your situation, you need a different, equally valid route. Let's reset the decision tree and trace the second pathway, the home-based route. Here, the Barton reading and spelling system provides an explicit one-to-one tutoring program designed to be highly accessible for parents and non-specialists to use on a tight budget. By utilizing a parent-led system, you bypass the need for expensive clinical specialists entirely. This brings evidence-based intervention into rural areas or high-poverty districts where school resources might be thin. The trade-off here is your schedule. Executing this effectively requires immense patience, strict consistency, and a massive weekly time commitment from the parent. When financial resources are scarce, your time and attention become the currency required to buy effective intervention. We also need to address the role of software. Adaptive technology programs like Lexia Core 5 target decoding and fluency by automatically adjusting their difficulty based on your child's real-time performance. However, software has strict limits. Adaptive tech provides excellent, scalable practice, but it cannot replace explicit, human-led instruction. Without a teacher guiding the underlying concepts, these programs risk turning into unmonitored busywork. This flowchart separates a child's needs into 2 tracks. The left is direct instruction to fix the reading deficit. The right is assistive technology, tools like Bookshare, Learning Ally, and speech-to-text dictation, ensuring they access intellectual content via a dual pathway approach. These tools are strictly accommodations. Listening to an audiobook does not teach a child how to decode letters. What it does is remove the immediate barrier, so they can absorb grade-level vocabulary and concepts. Both tracks have to run simultaneously. Assistive technology preserves your child's self-esteem and intellectual curiosity today, while the slower, heavier work of reading remediation happens in the background. The final variable is time. Research consistently shows that identifying signs early and beginning intensive intervention in kindergarten or first grade yields the absolute best outcomes. Taking a wait-and-see approach allows a small, manageable gap in reading skills to compound over the years. Delaying intervention leads to heavy frustration, lowered self-esteem, and persistent academic struggles that become much harder to correct later. To ensure you aren't wasting that precious time, use this scorecard. The International Dyslexia Association has established 8 instructional priorities for effective reading, including phonemic awareness, systematic phonics, and multisensory methods. Treat this list as your mandatory vetting tool. Whether you are interviewing a private tutor or evaluating your local school's curriculum, hold them accountable to these 8 priorities rather than trusting their marketing claims. Here is how you map these tools to your specific reality across 3 profiles. If you have financial resources, vet private tutors for clinical certifications from Wilson or Linda Mudd Bell. If budget constrained, use the Barton system at home, Bookshare for accommodations, and Cox Campus training. If relying on public schools, advocate. Verified general education and intervention programs like Foundations or Spire follow explicit, cumulative principles. You do not need to invent a new way to teach reading, and you don't need to buy a miracle. You just need to apply an evidence-based plan that fits your family's constraints. For a complete list of these vetted resources, free training links, and assistive technology guides, visit AskStellaNow.org.